Hey everybody, it's Mike and welcome to Chip Damage. And lo and behold, right after I do my 5-year Switch anniversary video, Nintendo drops a Nintendo Direct just days after that everyone is still talking about, still buzzing about whether you hated it, liked it, or indifferent. It's kind of on the tips of every gaming outlet's tongue right now. And there's a big reason for that. In fact, there's a couple of big reasons for that. A lot of new announcements, a lot of old games coming back, some surprises, some disappointments, and that's what I want to talk about today. We're going to go over everything, or just about everything that was talked about in the February 9th Nintendo Direct, because there's a lot to talk about. Of course, I'm going to focus on some titles more than others, game series that I'm more familiar with or more interested in I'm going to focus on, and I'll kind of skim through the ones that I'm not interested in, even though those may be great games, and if you enjoy them, I'm sorry if I don't go into them as depth as I should. But I'm going to have to just kind of speak to what I found the most interesting, and I'll try to provide a little bit more information that was recently released after the Direct that wasn't made clear during it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And if you like what you're about to see, please like, subscribe, and all that other great YouTube stuff. So let's jump into it, shall we? Yeah, well, this Direct, which was about 40 minutes long, started with the announcement of a new Fire Emblem Warriors game. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, coming out June 24th. Now, I am not a huge Fire Emblem fan. I think it's a fine series, but I've tried Awakening and Three Houses, but it really wasn't my cup of tea. The breeding thing was kind of odd to me. I'm more of a fan of Nintendo's other first and second party RPGs, whether it be the Paper Mario series or the Xeno series, which we'll talk about in a little while. Big surprise there. But Fire Emblem never really caught on with me. But I am a fan of Musou games. I heard that Fire Emblem Warriors wasn't bad. I heard it wasn't quite as good as Hyrule Warriors, a game I've sunk hundreds of hours into. But it looks like they're going back to the drawing board, or at least continuing this sub-series with the Three Hopes games, which looks to incorporate a lot from the most recent Fire Emblem Three Houses. So if you're a Fire Emblem fan or a Musou fan, obviously this was a big announcement for you. And I hope that game turns out awesome. Coming out in only a little over 4 months. That's not too long away. Following that, the kind of re-announcement of a game that I am very interested in, and that is the Advance Wars 1+2 rebooted collection on the Switch. Advance Wars, a pretty beloved handheld series for Nintendo on the Game Boy Advance, following up on the DS, but in particular the first 2 outings on the Game Boy Advance. Very beloved, kind of a neglected, forgotten franchise for quite a few years. Getting a facelift and a collection on the Switch on April 8th. This game was originally slated to debut last year, got pushed without a solid release date. Now we know when it's coming out. I've never played Advance Wars. I have it downloaded on my Wii U. I was going to get to it eventually. However, it looks like there's no longer need because we're getting 1 and 2 on the Switch. I will definitely be checking that out. Minor announcement right after that of No Man's Sky on the Switch. No Man's Sky is a game that really, from what I'm to understand, turned it around. In the court of popular opinion, it's much better now. Kind of surprising it's coming to the Switch so late. But hey, if you're interested, you're going to get to play No Man's Sky on the go. Great for you. But hereafter was followed by one of the biggest announcements of the night on the East Coast. It was 5 p.m. here. It could have been in the morning for you guys, wherever you are. Mario Strikers Battle League. Yeah, the sequel to the GameCube Mario Strikers game. Well, for my international fans, listen to my accent. It's quite obvious that I'm an American, so this is a soccer game to me, not a football game. Hope that doesn't annoy you too much. I think that's why they call it Mario Strikers instead of Mario Football or Mario Soccer, as to not confuse international audiences. But this game looks cool. I've had a little bit of experience with the GameCube one. Really different vibe for a Mario sports game. Kind of angry and extreme, and there was some controversy over some of the kind of posing in that game. You can look into it. It's a great game that I know a lot of people were kind of hoping would come back. And the Mario sports games, as of late, like Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, they've been good. They've been launching with a kind of underwhelming amount of content, but as time goes on, they seem to get more and kind of get better into a level that they should have been at launch. But it seems to happen after people have stopped caring about the game. Like the new Mario Tennis and Golf, from what I'm to understand, Mario Tennis was definitely better than the Wii U one, which launched with nothing. But I feel like they were solid mechanically, but a lot of fans were upset that, it took months and months and months for them to kind of get up to snuff content-wise. Otherwise, you could just breathe through them. Hopefully, that's not the case with this new Mario Strikers game. Hopefully, it's a full-fledged game. It looks great. It looks like it's going to play great. Let's hope there's enough in there. But as long as it kind of keeps the mechanics of the GameCube one, I think a lot of people are going to be happy. I hope it builds upon them. But I think people are just very happy to have a new Mario soccer game. After that, a minor minor announcement for some, but huge for others. Square Enix remastering, remaking the first two Front Mission games, kind of like tactical robot games for the Switch. And as I've done my research, I'm not sure if these are coming to other consoles, if that hasn't been announced quite yet. It seems to be the Switch timed exclusive at the very least. And Front Mission is a Square Enix franchise, yet again, neglected. There was the Left Alive game a few years ago that bombed hard for Square. So which was a kind of a side game set in the Front Mission universe that no one played, liked, or if they even knew about it. So it's a franchise that seems like it was kind of done, but it looks like it's getting a resurrection in this package. I have never had the chance to play these games on the original PS1. So this is a perfect opportunity to check it out. The first game of the two remakes is coming out in the summer, and then later this year, I believe they said, going to be part 2. It's a great chance to jump in. I really love this about the Switch, and we're going to see a lot of this to slow it down as we continue. It's like revivals of games that never got their chance in the sun. And, that's something I always love. Whether you got a chance to play these niche titles and you want to see them come back, or you never had the chance, I love that the Switch in particular seems to be the haven for these types of games. And you're going to see a lot more of that as we go on. And so let's continue on. The Disney Speedstorm Mario Kart announcement, Mario Kart clone announcement, that didn't matter, and we'll see why later. Then there's Star Wars Force Unleashed getting re-released for the Wii. I actually am someone who enjoyed the first Force Unleashed back on the 360 and PS3 back in the day. That's when Star Wars games were just allowed to be like wacky and fun. And there was like a million Star Wars games coming out all the time. We got like 4 in the last generation. I mean, we got like the 2 EA Battlefronts and like a space flight like VR game and Fallen Order. But like before that, there were so many Star Wars games coming out and popping up everywhere. Force Unleashed 1 and 2 being a pair of them. But like, in the gen before that, there's like how many on just the original Xbox? There was Obi-Wan, Republic Commando, Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, Starfighter Special Edition, Jedi Starfighter, KOTOR 2. And like they were just pumping them out. And most of them were actually pretty solid. But the funny thing about this version of Force Unleashed is actually a port of the Wii version, which from what I understanding is quite different than the 360 PS3 version. Like, yes, this is an odd version to bring back, but it's going to support the Wii motion controls, so I can see why they did it for the Switch. I mean, I'm kind of interested just because I never played this version. I know it has a multiplayer mode that was exclusive to it, and I, as someone who is a big fan of like Star Killer, I am willing to jump back into this and maybe try it when it comes out. It'll probably be like $8-9, just like Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast previously on the Switch were. But just an oddity that like the downgraded port of an old Star Wars game is coming to Switch instead of like the premiere version. But that's neither here nor there. We must move on to one of my favorite announcements of the night. I think this is a lot of people's favorite announcement for the night, and that is the remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, of this gem right here, Chrono Cross. The kind of controversial sequel to Chrono Trigger. Now, for those who don't know, and just as a brief recap, Chrono Trigger, originally released on the Super Nintendo, is considered by many to be the greatest 16-bit RPG of all time. Is it my favorite? It's one of them. I still prefer Final Fantasy VI over Chrono Trigger, but I can't fault anyone who says Chrono Trigger is not the best. I love the game. It's great. Chrono Cross was a PlayStation 1 sequel that only has trace amounts of connections to Chrono Trigger, and as the game kind of goes on, they become more relevant. But it was definitely an underappreciated gem. Famously, this is one of the few games that got a perfect 10 back on GameSpot back in the day when they just didn't give out perfect 10, so kind of had some attention there. But it's a great game with a weird battle system that, like, once you get, but it's tough. But this game getting re-released is kind of a miracle, and this will actually be on all consoles. That is important to note. This is coming on April 7th, and this is coming out on Switch, PS4, Xbox, and PC. I will be getting on PlayStation because I love trophies. This will have the ability to turn off encounters. I saw some people annoyed that this isn't a full remake. It's just kind of like a port with some filters, and you're able to kind of turn those filters on and off, they announced. But I don't mind that so much. I love the look of polygonal PS1 RPGs, especially on the PlayStation 1. Some people call me a dinosaur for that, or that I'm like blinded by nostalgia. But like some of those games I haven't played, and when I go back and I play them, I find those polygonal graphics very charming because they have to use a lot of pantomime, and they have to use the lack of voice acting as a strength. I always love in PS1 JRPGs that the music is always great because it must carry the fact that it is mostly silent. And I think like a great example of that is, of course, Final Fantasy VII. Like the music carries the mood. And when you have voice acting, you might have bad voice acting, but when it's just text, You can't have that. So I'm fine with the way it looks. And apparently there's going to be a remix soundtrack. Very curious about that. That is always a funny thing. When you touch Square Enix soundtracks, some people get a little touchy. Final Fantasy X had this issue where the original release of the HD version only had the new soundtrack. The later versions on PS4 had both, like, the option to switch between. I am curious. I'm not super familiar. I don't remember the soundtrack to Chrono Cross in particular. I know there's some bangers on there, but I'm curious what the comparison will be. Will it just be upscaled? Will it be a new arrangement? I'm going to keep my eye on this. But we're not done with this game. This is Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition. Well, what is Radical Dreamers? Now, this is an odd one. Even as a collector of a lot of obscure games, this one is something that I faintly remember, but I wasn't quite clear on what it was. Radical Dreamers was a link between a text-based game, basically a dialogue game, that links Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross in a very odd way, but essentially it's a midquill that was released on the Satellaview, which was a satellite add-on for the Super Nintendo. Like, you needed a satellite service to play these games. Very obscure, very rare piece of hardware. Very rare service, like Sega Channel level stuff, right? But even more obscure because it was never released here. And this is going to be the first time that's brought over to the US. And just a cool name, Radical Dreamers. Like, that's a money name, I must say so myself. So it's going to be a new, prettier version of Chrono Cross with the ability to, like, turn, encounters off and all the bells and whistles, with some new content that, like, 5 people have ever seen who haven't, like, gone online and mined it. But yeah, this was a big announcement for me. There were rumors about a Chrono Cross remake in full. If that's what you're expecting, I'm sorry, it's not the case. But hey, a new generation get to play an underappreciated JRPG from the past on every console, and that is coming out April 7th. I will be picking that up day 1. Thank you, Square, for that. And I don't say that often. And then we got more footage of probably the coolest looking Switch, like brand new Switch game coming out this year. One of them anyway, a surprise. We got more footage of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This game looks awesome. Kirby is a franchise that I like. I've played a few of them on the Game Boy, the Super Nintendo, like Kirby, the original, like Kirby and Dreamland on Game Boy, and the Kirby DS game, like Superstar, and the Super Nintendo one. I love that Samurai game. If you guys who know what I'm talking about, the Samurai mini game where 2 players have to hit a button quicker than the other, and they do like the Samurai run by, and one of you fall. Great mini game. Look it up. But this game looks amazing. It's a 3D platformer a la Mario Odyssey, but it's Kirby with his ability to absorb his enemies and get their abilities. And then some. In this video, you saw Kirby absorb objects or try to swallow objects that don't quite fit in his mouth, like a car. And since it can't quite fit, the wheels are still exposed, so you like can drive around it with this car as Kirby is trying to swallow it. It looks like there's a lot of transformation in his abilities. The graphics look very charming, very stylish. It looks like if Nier Automata was mixed with Mario Odyssey. That's what it looks like. Like post-apocalyptic, but like everyone's happy about it. And it looks cool. It looks like it has way more depth than any Kirby has ever had. I get depth. The first like true 3D Kirby adventure on a console. This looks sick. I will be picking this up on March 25th. I know this is going to be like an easy, quick game, but it looks like a fun game. It looks like it's not going to be super challenging, but who knows? Maybe the first hard Kirby game. There's a lot of stuff going on in that trailer. And the budget is just through the roof. This game looks more, or at least as expansive as like a full 3D Mario game. So I'm glad that Kirby, who's technically a second-party character, is getting love. Like, he's been getting a lot of games, but they all have been 2D games or they've been relegated to the handhelds. So to get like a big, what seems to be a big budget 3D adventure, go Kirby. I am so down for this. But we must move on to one of the most boring announcements of the night, and that is the MLB The Show trailer that was shown for the Switch. It is still weird. I just want to mention that, this is still a Sony-made game that is coming to Nintendo and Xbox this year. Like, MLB The Show, made by Sony Studios, is coming to the Switch due to like MLB forcing Sony to make that happen. I'm something of a baseball fan myself. However, I don't play baseball video games, and it was just odd to have like these Japanese players come and endorse this game. But moving on from that, just an oddity. We are going to talk about another one of the Switch's great revivals. We're going to talk about the Clonoa 1 and 2 Fantasy Reverie Collection. This is a weird title, so we're just going to call this the Clonoa Collection. So, what is Clonoa? What is this? Clonoa is something that, shockingly, I just recently played earlier this year, or late last year at this point. Clonoa is a duology of platformers, the first one on the PlayStation and the second one on the PlayStation 2. And there was a few on the Game Boy Advance as well, but this collection collects the first games, the first one PS1, the second one PS2. And it's a 2.5D side scroll where he plays like this rat cabbit creature in the vein of like anthropomorphic animal like Sonic, through a very dreamy like Kirby-esque world. It kind of gives me like Nights into Dreams vibes, which is why I originally downloaded it and played it on the PS3 late last year. And it was a really fun platformer. I didn't get that far in it, but it seemed to have the right difficulty curve, a great style, and even the polygonal graphics were very charming. However, I don't need to go through that version because I'm going to have it a brand new and very nice looking version on the Switch. Now, this game was originally also re-released on the Wii, I believe, back in 2008. But a lot of fans weren't a fan of the aesthetics of that version. Like, it kind of looked too clean, kind of lost a little bit of the charm of the PS1 version. That's what I've heard. And kind of from what I've seen, I haven't played that Wii version, but I've seen some footage of it. But this version looks to be better looking than that. So this is the third release of Clonoa 1. It was PS1, Wii, and now on the Switch. And it's followed by the PS2 game, Clonoa 2, which I have no experience with. It is a PlayStation 2 game, yet again, 2.5D. However, the physical version of that game is quite expensive and is not available digitally in the United States. It's like a $100 game that I was thinking of picking up. But now, I don't have to because I can get it right on my Switch in a nice remastered package with the first one coming out July 7th. This will be coming to other consoles, so I probably will wait for that to come out on PS4, trophies, and controller. That's why I'm getting it. But if you want to get it first, if you want to get it earlier, it's coming first to the Switch in July, and then later on all other consoles and PC. Awesome collection. I love this. I've heard from so many people that Clonoa deserves more love. And from what I've played, it does. It's got a good charm to it. Check that out. Check out Clonoa if you're looking for a good platformer. Then we're getting something of a revival sequel with the Nintendo Switch Sports package, the sequel to Wii Sports. You know, this is for the friends who don't play games when they come over for a party or when the family's over. Wii bowling, Wii tennis, kind of the sequel to that. Not much to say on it, but it comes out in April. I'm surprised they waited this long for that to come out. I bet that's going to be a decent-sized hit, but not much to say on it. Nintendo Switch Sports coming out soon. Also followed by the Taiko drum game. I am familiar with the Taiko drum games because they are playable in the Yakuza franchise as mini-games, and I've seen them in arcades. Very cool, like drumming games, and they look like they have some Nintendo tunes in there from like Zelda, which sounds awesome, but not much to say on it. Drumming rhythm game Taiko coming to the Switch. The next announcement is very cool. Another revival, another remake of a franchise or a game that no one here in the U.S. has played, but may not officially, legally, but has definitely heard of. And that is Live Alive, also I believe is how they said it in the trailer. So I've heard it said Live Alive, but Live Alive does sound a little better now that I think about it. Live Alive was a precursor to, in many ways, to Octopath Traveler, for those who are familiar. It is a Super Nintendo JRPG that came out in '94, only in Japan, underperformed, but has a cult following. Where you play as 7 or 8 different characters at different time periods, and you go on adventures. You kind of choose who you want to be, much in the vein of Octopath, kind of like choosing what characters you want to focus on, and a bunch of stories kind of converging and bouncing around each other. So I would keep my eye on this. This is something I will be picking up. The difference between this and the other earlier releases is this is kind of a remake. This is going to be made in the 2.5 or the 2D HD or HD 2D style that Octopath was made so famous. So it's a beautiful, essentially, remake of this classic Super Nintendo game with modern visual. Well, HD, old school visuals, but basically modern visuals. And it looks and it sounds great. It looks like it's going to have some voice acting. That's going to be interesting. I really like Octopath Traveler. This game is said to be similar. And the fact that it's going to look so good and most likely sound so good, and that it took 25 years to actually get here, 26 years, like 1994, like that is incredible that a cult game like that is coming to the Switch. It seems to be, as of right now, a Switch exclusive. It is going to be $50 US, so I think that is a lot for an older game. But like I said, it is remade essentially into that HD 2D style. So I will be picking this up when that comes out later this year. Live Alive, random JRPG that like only hardcore fans would know about, and like collectors who were like, what is this one square JRPG that didn't come here on the Super Nintendo? But one of the cooler announcements of the night, a deep cut. And then some updates to some older games, right? We got the updates for Metroid Dread announced, where they're essentially getting an easy mode, a one-hit kill hard mode, and a boss rush mode that are all coming in waves of updates throughout the year. So if people who want to make it easier, harder, or just fight the bosses, Metroid Dread is apparently the best-selling 2D Metroid game at the very least, maybe the best-selling Metroid game, period. I got to look into that. I've not had a chance to play it yet, but I'm glad I'm kind of waiting because it seems like the game isn't fully content complete yet. I know it is content complete in and of itself. The longer I wait, it looks like the more content I'm going to get because I've heard that game is excellent and I can't wait to check that out when I finally get the time. But it may be rough with all these amazing games coming out. And speaking of amazing games coming out, always the fake out with Nintendo with this series. Nintendo is bringing to their paid online Switch service the collection of games Earthbound to the Super Nintendo selection and Earthbound Beginnings to the NES Nintendo collection. And this is interesting. So this took way too long to get to this online service. If you've seen my prior video, I'm very critical of Nintendo's online service. I don't think it holds a candle to the eShop that they used to have on the Wii U, and Switch. I think it's terrible that you cannot purchase and own these games as you could on prior consoles. You must have this online service to play these classic Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, as well as N64 and Genesis games, when you could just pay $5, $10 for them before and keep them. Once you don't have this service, and once it goes down, you will not have these games. But you're able to buy like all the other third-party and like new releases on the Switch. Like you can buy Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for $5 and own it on Switch, but you can't buy Mario Brothers on Switch. You must have the online service, and once that goes down, you'll lose it. Regardless, another big factor of it is that the library is weak. They add the games to these libraries very slowly, and a lot of games that were on the eShop are missing. But Earthbound's a big one. Earthbound people begged for on the eShop, and it finally came out on the eShop for the Wii U and the 3DS. It never got released on the Wii. But despite that, like the Wii, no one had the Wii U. So if you wanted to play this thing on a home console, you were kind of out of luck. Finally, people will be able to, at a wider market, be able to play Earthbound on their television with the Switch, one of the most revered JRPGs of all time. And you're going to be able to play that on your television. That's cool. Regardless of it being on the surface, Earthbound deserves a little bit more love. And Earthbound Beginnings, even more so. Earthbound Beginnings, if you don't know, is Mother 1. The franchise known as Mother. Earthbound, the original starring NES's Mother 2. The NES original never came to the States until 2015, only on the Wii U Virtual Shop. So it came out somewhat late in the Wii U's lifespan as a download-only title on the least successful Nintendo home console. Yet no one had a chance to play Earthbound Beginnings unless you had a Wii U, which isn't a lot of people. So it's very cool that it's been added to the Switch Online service just because people definitely put work into that game, and not many people got to appreciate it. And with the Switch's wide audience, some people will finally get to be able to appreciate Earthbound Beginnings because that game was so long coming to the United States. It wasn't the Mother that people wanted, though. Everyone knows this, who's kind of more on the Nintendo side of things, but Mother 3, the game starring Lucas that you may know from Super Smash Bros., which came out in 2006 in Japan, fans have been begging for that game to come to the United States for years. Reggie Fils-Aimé, the old president of Nintendo, to this day, even after quitting, says that like the most annoying thing he got, and something he still gets, is people yelling at him for Mother 3. And Nintendo has acknowledged the demand for Mother 3. But there's multiple reasons why Mother 3 may never come here. Some controversial content involving characters in the game that are maybe perceived as negative stereotypes of trans people. Some very dark themes for what looks like a very cute game. Like other than that, like it's probably never coming here. But from what I'm to understand, it's one of the greatest games of all time. Not even just one of the greatest JRPGs, one of the hardest hitting like games. I'm very interested in playing it, but I feel like if I play a bootleg or like download version, it's going to come out officially. But I just, at this point, I don't see it coming to the United States, and if I do see it coming, it's going to be heavily edited. It did come to the Wii U shop in Japan, but it never came here, so that's just showing that it's probably never going to release in the US and Europe, sadly. But who knows? Maybe with the release of Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound on the eShop, on the Switch Online service, I should say, it'll further the demand for those games, show that people want that game translated and brought over here intact. I tell you now, no one should be offended by Earthbound, a game made 15 years ago that if you actually play the game, it is wonderful and has wonderful themes and it shouldn't offend anyone. I can't wait to see the message boards explode, telling Nintendo to bring Mother 3 to the US again. But we must move on. One minor game. There was a sizzle reel of games, of a bunch of games, and one caught my eye. Getsu, I had to write this down. Getsu Fumaden, kind of a 2.5D or 2D ninja side scroller from Konami of all people, kind of looking like Japanese Symphony of the Night, like almost reminding me of Murmaza the Demon Blade from the Wii and the Vita. Classical Japanese monsters, samurais, ninjas, and very high D HD 2D art. I think this was announced quite a while ago for Switch and Steam, but it launched at the time of the Direct yesterday. So something to keep your eye on. Getsu Fumadin, something I want to look at. Minor indie game that caught my eye from Konami, who doesn't make a lot of games anymore. So definitely going to check that out. And then the final two announcements, which could be considered the biggest two announcements of the night. The first being what we thought was all going to be the announcement of Mario Kart 9, because there's been so many rumors out of from this. And you know, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe launched in 2017. That's what the host of the Direct said. So it's been 5 years. But really, he may say that, but that game launched in 2014 on the Wii U. Yes, Deluxe is a solid upgrade from the original version on Wii U, but like what we're actually playing is an 8-year-old game from 2014. Like, yes, Deluxe added 2 weapons and some the DLC and you know, some racers, but the core of that game is 8 years old. But you know, these games are selling incredible. Like the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling game on the Switch. It's the best-selling Mario Kart of all time, and it's probably going to end up being one of the best-selling games of all time by itself, not even including the Wii U version, just like Deluxe by itself. And you know what? As a fan, I like 8 a lot. I think 8 is the best. I know a lot of people say Double Dash or DS, but there's something about 8 that I really liked. However, it is old, and I am ready to move on to the next one. But I wasn't sure if Nintendo would break their one Mario Kart per console rule. So I was very curious about this. They are not breaking that rule. They're throwing a curveball. They're doing something I did not expect. They are giving us DLC. Yes, they are giving us DLC for a 5-year-old Switch game, ostensibly an 8-year-old game overall, but a 5-year-old Switch game is getting DLC. Wild. I'm like, DLC, but I get, you know, it makes sense though. They don't we're probably a little more than half past the Switch's lifespan. They don't want to release a Mario Kart 9 when Mario Kart 8 is selling so well. They don't want to like release a Mario Kart and then have a new console come out in 2 years. That would hurt it. That would hamper the sales. They need Mario Kart to continue to sell. So I was a little disappointed with that at first, but then they said what this DLC was going to be. It's going to be 48 new courses. What? 48 new? That's a whole new game. Like, it's nearly doubling the size of Mario Kart 8's track roster. There's already tons of tracks in that game. I think there's like, you know, somewhere in the 50s for that game. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are already a ton of tracks. And I believe the total after these 48 are going to be added is 96. I think there's already 48 tracks in there. And that's insane. And the best thing about it, it's $25. Now, yes, it's an older game, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still looks fantastic, so I don't mind that. But I still love the mechanics. But like that's like less than $1 a course. Like that is, you know, or a little bit more than $1 a course. Like that is awesome. 48 stages for, that's 48 stages for 25. What am I saying? That's less than $1 a course. My bad. Math was never my strong suit, but like that's a lot of content for not a huge price. And if you have the Nintendo Online service, the $50 one that gives you N64 and Genesis games, you get this as part of that. I hate that service too because it's not exactly what we want. It's a little bit much, but they're starting to show the value of that fully paid service with like the Animal Crossing DLC for a lot of people and now the Mario Kart service. But this makes sense, you know? And I think I'm pretty happy with this. They're bringing a lot of these 48 courses, or perhaps all of them, are going to be remastered tracks from the entire Mario Kart franchise. That's so many stages. They're going to be rolling them out in packs of 8, so 6 ostensibly, throughout the next 2 years, next year until the end of 2023. So like, what is that? Like one pack of 8 every 2 months, like that, or every 3 months. That's cool. I'm down for that. And I see it. It makes sense. I'm like, it's something I didn't expect them to do because there hasn't been any DLC or updates for Mario Kart in years. So this is cool. It's going to definitely breathe some more life into the game. Probably sell some more copies if that's possible. And I thought it was pretty cool. If you hate the core feel of Mario Kart 8, you're not going to enjoy this. You're still going to be pissed and hoping for Mario Kart 9. I can't tell you how many people tell me that Mario Kart DS is the best and they should use the mechanics from that. I got you, but it ain't happening for a while, guys. You'll get maybe eventually, but enjoy the 96 courses that'll be out when this is all said and done. But we're going to move on to the big announcement of the night, or at least what was intended to be the biggest final announcement, closing moment of the show, and that is the sequel to this gem right here, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. We are getting Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in September of this year. Wow. I mentioned in my prior video that there were rumors of Monolith Soft working on their next game. I wasn't sure if it was solid that it was going to be the next Xenoblade, but lo and behold it is. And let me tell you, Monolith Soft, the creators of the Xeno series, and a second-party Nintendo company at this point, they've been killing it. For those who don't know, Monolith Soft helped in the development of Breath of the Wild, making it an open world game, because this company knows how to do open worlds. Xenoblade is not your first JRPG. Like, it is not an entry level, and it has a complicated combat system, a complicated story, but it is beautiful and fantastic, and they try things very anime, which I'm all about. And yeah, I am shocked to see that almost the entire Xenoblade series is on the Switch now. It will a trilogy. So this game launched in the first year of the Switch's life. It was the holiday title in 2017. That was a surprise too. That was a great year for Nintendo. It was Zelda, Mario Kart, Mario, and a Xenoblade all in the first year. So I can't believe it. By the time Xenoblade 3 comes out, this game will almost be 5 years old. And I still haven't had a chance to go fully through this game because it's really long. And I was about to. But this company has been kicking it with Xenoblade for this whole gen. Obviously, 2017, Xenoblade 2, which got a huge expansion, Xenoblade 2 Torna, which you can download digitally or you can buy physically. It's actually quite rare to buy. It's like $100 physical cart, but you know, Xeno games are typically very collectible. And then 2 years ago, they released the Xenoblade Chronicles 1 remake, which is gorgeous. It's like the definitive version of that game. It originally, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 launched on the Wii, and then on the 3DS, for whatever reason, the new Nintendo 3DS, it was like a launch title for the update of that system. But the definitive edition gave that game a major facelift and added content, added some post-game content that like kind of connected everything. And you know, that's incredible. So we got Xenoblade 2 with a huge expansion. We got Xenoblade 1 remade with a minor expansion or extra part that was included with the game. And now we're getting Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And the trailer looks amazing. They know how to do these trailers. All you got to see is a character running through these massive grave fields with robots, an explosion, and a combat system that you need like a calculus degree to wrap your mind around. But like, these are big JRPGs, right? Very big. And it is so rare that we are getting multiple ones of... Let me try to articulate this. Back in the day, we would get like, you know, PlayStation 1, you would get Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and Tactics. Huge JRPGs, all in the course of just a few years. That doesn't happen anymore. That kind of ended when HD development started. But Monolith Soft doesn't seem to care. These games, you know, given that the Switch isn't the most graphically powerful system, they've been pumping out these huge, beautiful games. 3 games, huge games in just 5 years. Incredible. And helping with Breath of the Wild. I do have one regret, though. One sad thing. I said that almost the entire Xenoblade franchise is on the Switch. With the release of Xenoblade 3, I must say that I think any hopes are dashed of Xenoblade Chronicles X coming to the Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles X, if you don't know, came out in between Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 as a Wii U exclusive late in the Wii U's life. It's very different. It is not a character-focused game. You do not play as a named character. You build your own character, which generally I don't enjoy as much. Yes, the story in Xenoblade Chronicles X is weaker, but that game is massive. Bigger than Breath of the Wild, bigger than Grand Theft Auto, I think combined, bigger than Skyrim. Xenoblade Chronicles X has one of the largest and most expansive explorable worlds of any game, like period. The Wii U could barely handle the game. If you don't know, Xenoblade Chronicles X, to play that game properly, you must install like a 10 gig downloadable patch onto your Wii U in 4 parts that enhanced the graphics and the load time. The game wasn't like out of the box ready. You had to install, it was optional, it was free to get like these huge updates for the Wii U to run the game as intended, because that game just pushed it. And it is huge. Vertical, expansive wise, and you play giant, it's like an 80-hour story, and it is trapped on the Wii U. There was some gamepad functionality with that game, which makes me believe that maybe that's the trouble with bringing it to the Switch. But I've seen that worked around before. Like, there are plenty of Wii U ports on Switch now that had some touchpad functionality. Even Mario 3D World that they made work, like the blowing on it. And I've seen dual screen games like the Mega Man Zero Collection on multiple consoles work in the dual screen features. So I really do hope that Xenoblade Chronicles X can join its siblings on the Switch, but I don't see it happening because it was such a niche hit. All the reviews for that game are pretty damn good, and you watch any video that goes in depth about it, they're going to tell you it's incredible. Despite its weaker story, it's a cool story. It's just not character driven, but the world itself is ridiculous. Regardless, we are very soon going to have Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3 all on the Switch, and that is unbelievable. Good for you, Monolith Soft, for pumping these games out because it can't be easy in their quality. And for gaining more traction with characters like Shulk, Pyra, and Mythra, all in Smash Brothers, getting it more attention. That's why that Torna cartridge is so hard to get. Everyone bought the hell out of that. And this is pretty rare itself, the collector's edition of Xenoblade 2 with this great cover. One of my favorite covers of all time. But I got to get caught up on Xenoblade. I got to finish this game in the DLC. And that rounded out the Direct. And yeah, wow, I understand that not... Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, because I'm not a huge fan, how dare I forget, because everyone's going to yell at me for this, there was a lot of footage shown for Splatoon 3 early in the presentation. I'm not a huge Splatoon fan, not my thing, but it is like Nintendo's only shooter going right now. So I know that's big for a lot of people. Splatoon, one of Nintendo's newer IPs, just keeps selling, keeps doing good. Good on you, Splatoon. And that brings us to the end of that Direct, and I gotta say, like, I was thrilled. I did not expect much. Like, I don't really expect much out of Directs, really, like, because it's always like a surprise and something random. It could be like terrible, where they just talk about like live service games or whatever, or the online service or some sports game. Or it could be really cool with surprises like Link's Awakening and Metroid Dread, where that like they just drop out of nowhere. So I kind of go in with like no expectations and kind of take what they give me. I didn't know what to expect, but this was awesome. It's not great if you're not a JRPG fan. I'm gonna tell you that right now. With Live Alive, Earthbound, Xenoblade 3, Fire Emblem, Front Mission, Chrono Cross, like yeah, this was mostly a very focused Direct for JRPGs, but there's some stuff for everybody. That Kirby game looks awesome. I don't care who you are. Mario Strikers, awesome. The Wii Sports thing, fantastic. If you like MLB, there's a Portal collection announced for the Switch. There was a little bit of something for everyone of all skill levels, and I think that they really killed it with this. And it's not what I expected. Yeah, there are some disappointments, don't get me wrong. And I bet it's going to be the big three, right? They didn't say hide nor hair, a Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, or Bayonetta 3. The three games that everybody wants on this damn console, pretty much since the launch of the console, especially Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta 3 being announced back in like 2017. Like, unbelievable. And Bayonetta 3 is ostensibly coming out this year. I keep mentioning this. Like, they mentioned games all the way up to September. Like, they really stacked. Like, this is from basically now until September. So I guess those games aren't coming out until then. Because if they do, I don't know. They're gonna blow out some of these other games. Yeah, that's disappointing, but we know they're coming, right? Zelda's not getting canceled. Metroid might, but who knows? I doubt it with the success of Dread. And Bayonetta 3, we've seen gameplay, so that is coming out. Probably just not as soon. I hope they're not pushed to 2018. But if they are, so be it. We have plenty to play until those come out. And like I said, the Switch is not the greatest piece of hardware in the world, technically. But what they're doing, I think, is so great. They're doing a shotgun approach. They have no one game in particular. Maybe, the Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, what have you. They don't really let one game carry the console, no, or one genre, or even their own first party. It's everything. Whatever they can put on the Switch, they put on it. Like I said, there's on prior videos, there's Dark Souls ports, Elder Scrolls ports, Doom ports, old JRPG ports, like Dragon Quest, like the Mana games are on here. Some of the best versions of Sonic 1 and 2. Sure, throw them on the Switch. Everything, just all go. Final Fantasy 7. Resident Evil 4 and 5 are on the Switch. Sure, why not? Like Revelations, older games get put on all the time as they add a ton of new games. Sure, the Nintendo Online Service sucks, so their older first-party games, that library blows, but everything else it has. And this is really shaping up to be an incredible console. I think by the end of the day, if Bayonetta 3 ends up being good, it really rides on that. This may be my favorite Nintendo console of all time. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic with that, for sheer variety. Not one game or one genre in particular, but just the fact that they try to cram so much onto this little handheld that has bad online and isn't nearly as powerful as the other consoles. And with the terrible online service, it's still great, just out of sheer variety and quantity of their games and quality for most of them. So that brings us to the end of the video. And of course, I'm going to ask the question, what did you guys think of this? What did you care about? What did you like? What did you not like? What did you expect to see? Were you surprised by anything? Are you buying any of these? Have you ever played some of the games that are getting re-released? And let me know what you think of them. Live Alive, Clonoa, Advance Wars. These are games that I'm not super familiar with that I'm going to get my chance to get my hands on now, finally. So please let me know all about that. Were you very disappointed? Were you looking for Metroid Prime 4 or Zelda or Bayonetta? I understand, but I think I really do think they made up for those lack of announcements with a variety of cool ones. Let me know. I want to hear about it. And of course, I'll respond back to you as quickly as I can. As always, my name is Mike. This has been Chip Damage, and please take care of yourselves.